Hello and welcome to the new video. Today we have a story, All Summer and Day by Ray Douglas Bradbury. It's a science fiction story, sci-fi story, the setting of which is in the planet Venus. There is a school in the planet Venus and there are children of rocket scientists studying over there. And the climate of Venus is such that it is all time raining, day and night, and every 7 years there is a sunshine for an hour or two. So, this is a scene, this is a setting scene on which the story starts. There are two main characters, Margaret and William. Margaret is different from all other children of the school because she came to Venus just 5 years before, and the other children of the school were living in the Venus from starting. So, they all are 9 years old. So, they have seen sunshine in their life only once when they were 2 years old. So, they did not have any image of sun in their mind. While Margaret came from the Ohio, America, just 5 years back. So, she was 4 years old when she was in Ohio. So, she had a memory of sunshine and sun. So, that is why all other children are jealous of her and they keep on bullying her, they do not like her, and Margaret keeps aloof from all of the children of the school. So, the sun is to shine, and in that setting a story starts, and due to their jealousy all of the children place Margaret in a closet and shut there. She was not able to see sunshine, but when all other children experiences the sunshine, the sun, their mind changes and they feel sorry and they release Margaret from the closet, but Margaret was not able to see the sun. So, this is the story, All Summer and a Day, which I discussed to get a grip over it. So, I start the story reading para wise, stanza wise, and then we will comprehend it. So, it is starting, ready, now, soon. Do the scientists really know? Will it happen today? Will it? So, the students in the school are guessing. So, will the sun appear today? Because scientists, their parents have predicted that it will come today. Look for yourself. The children press to each other like so many roses, so many weeds, intermixed, peering out for a look at a hidden sun. So, the children were not all gentle or very charming, they were like roses and weeds. So, the writer has given the clue that they are rather jealous and they are of the nature of weeds also. They are roses because they are children, but they are like the weeds also. So, they were eagerly waiting for the sun, guessing, will the sun appear today or not? It has been raining for 7 years. Now, this is the way the writer sets the story. Raining for 7 years, thousands upon thousands of days, compounded and filled from one end to the other with rain. So, thousands of days it has been raining with the drums and gush of water. Drums and gush of water. So, rather it is a imagery, auditory imagery. Drum and gush is a sound. Lots of water is being pouring there with a sound, heavy sound, with the sweet crystal falls of shower and the concussor of storms so heavy that they were tidal waves. So, repeatedly there are damaging storms such as tidal waves come over the islands. 1,000 forests have been crushed under rain and grown up 1,000 times to be crushed again. So, it is raining so heavily that forests are getting crushed, and again after being crushed they reappear again to be crushed again. So, this is a way the poet, this writer has placed a setting that this is the life on Venus. This is the climate of Venus, and this was the way life was forever on the planet Venus. So, this was the life on Venus, and this was the schoolroom of the children of the rocket men and women who had come to a reigning world to set up a civilization and live out their lives. So, these are the children of the rocket men and rocket women, and they are studying in a school in Venus, and what they experience is rain, rain and rain. So, now they are guessing that today will be a day when sun appear. So, they are saying it is stopping, it is stopping, yes, yes. So, they are guessing that the rain is stopping. Margaret stood apart from them, from these children who could ever remember a time when there wasn't rain. So, Margaret was a different child. Margaret didn't remember. Margaret came from, as I said, from Ohio. So, these children apart from Margaret do not remember how does the sun look like and how would it look like when there will be no rain. So, they could not even remember a time when there wasn't rain, rain and rain. They were all 9 years old. So, they are all 9-year-old, and if there had been a day 7 years ago when the sun came out for an hour and showed its face to the stunned world, they could not recall. So, it is true that 7 years before sun came, because every 7 years sun reappears, but these children are too small to remember an image of 7 years before. Sometimes at night she heard them stir in remembrance, and she knew they were dreaming and remembering gold or yellow crayon or coin large enough to buy the world. So, what Margaret experiences at night, she hears that they are a bit excited about talking about the sun. Other children are a bit excited about talking about the sun, and they were dreaming about the sun, which is like a gold or yellow crayon, or which is like a large enough coin, large coin enough to buy a word, such a large coin. So, when you say yellow sun is like a gold or yellow crayon, you are using color imagery. Writer has used color imagery, and coin large enough to buy the word. It is a simile. The story is full of poetic literary devices. So, the word with, she knew, they thought, they remembered a warmness like a blushing in the face, in the body. So, what they are thinking? They are thinking of the warmness. Blushing is getting red in the face, in the body, and in the arms and the legs, and trembling hands. So, the hands are shaking, trembling, because they do not have enough sunshine. But then they always awoke to the tatting drums. But the reality is there is always rain, like the tatting drum, sounding drum. So, it's an tatting drum is an auditory imagery. The endless shaking down of clear bead necklace upon the roof. So, raindrops are compared to the necklace. So, endless shaking of clear beads, necklaces upon the roof, over the roof. The walk, the gardens, the forest and their dreams were gone. So, whenever they dream of the sun, whenever they dream of the sunlight, their imagination is disrupted by this reality of tatting drums, by the raindrops. All day yesterday, but yesterday was different, because yesterday they read in the class about the sun, they were reading about the sun and about how a lemon it was. So, they are thinking sun is a lemon and how hot. They have written small stories or essays or poems about it. So, what did children do in the class? They have written poetry, stories about the sun. I think the sun is flower that blooms just 1 hour. So, this was the poem. That was Margaret's poem, read in a quiet voice in the still classroom while it was raining outside. So, reality was this, that it was raining outside, but Margaret wrote a poem. Sun is a flower that blooms for just an hour. We can see easily, it is a metaphor. Sun is a flower that blooms just for 1 hour. So, as scientists have predicted that the sun is going to come, the children are preparing for that. Oh, you did not write that. So, other children interrupted Margaret because they were jealous of her. Why? Because she had experience of sun on the earth. Protested one of the boys. So, one of the boys said that, Margaret, you did not write this poem. I did, said Margaret. I did. Margaret said, yes, I did write it. William, said the teacher. Teacher interrupted William that don't argue with Margaret. But that was yesterday. Now the rain was slackening and the children were crushed in a thick great window. But rain is becoming slow and children were still inside the window. Where is the teacher? She will be back. And suddenly teacher goes somewhere. So, the children are discussing, she will be back. She'd better hurry, we will miss it. So, the children are thinking that teacher should be here, otherwise they won't be able to see the sun. So, they are saying should be here. They turned on themselves like a feverish wheel. So, all tumbling spokes. So, they were all combined together like a wheel and with tumbling spokes. Margaret was alone. Margaret stood alone. She was a very frail girl. Margaret was a very weak girl, frail, weak, who looked as if she had been lost in rain for years. So, now Margaret is being explained. She looks as if she has lost in the rain for years. She is lost in the rain and the rain has washed out the blue from her eyes and the red from her mouth and the yellow from her hair. So, what has rain washed? Rain has washed all the colors of Margaret. So, the blue color of her eyes is washed, red color of her mouth is washed and the yellow color of her hair is washed. So, all is this color imagery. She was an old photograph dusted from an album. So, Margaret is resembling like an old photograph that is dusted from an album, whitened away, and she spoke at all. Her voice would be like a ghost, and if she spoke, she looked like ghost. So, this is the way Margaret is explained. She is looking colorless. All her colors are faded and she looks like a ghost. Now, she stood separate, starting at the rain and loud wet word beyond the huge glass. Now, Margaret stood and she stand behind the huge glass. What are you looking at? William argued, what are you looking at? Margaret said nothing. Speak when you are spoken to. So, William said, you should speak. He gave her a shove, but she did not move. So, what did William do? William pushed Margaret forcefully. Rather, she let herself be moved only by him and nothing else. So, they edged away from her. They would not look at her. She felt them go away, and this was because she would play no games with them in echoing tunnels of the underground city. So, they all disliked Margaret because Margaret never played any games with them in the underground tunnels. If they tagged her and ran, she stood blinking after them and did not follow. So, if they tag with Margaret, Margaret remains blinking, opening and closing her eyes, and she did not play with them. When the class sang songs about happiness and life and games, her lips barely moved. So, Margaret did not join the class when the songs of happiness and the life and the games are there in the class. Only when they sang about the sun and the summer did her lips move and she watched the drenched windows. What is the one event when Margaret is with the class? When the class sings about sun or the summer. So, we can guess that Margaret likes summer too much. And then of course, the biggest crime of all was that she had come here only 5 years ago, and from the sky was when she was 4 in Ohio. And what was the biggest crime of Margaret? It was the biggest crime of Margaret that she came in the planet just 5 years before, and up to the age of 4 she was she grew in Ohio, and they had been on Venus all their lives. So, they were living in the Venus all their lives. Margaret enjoyed sun for 4 years in Ohio, and they had been only 2 years old when the last sun came out, and had since forgotten the color and heat of it. So, they have all forgotten the color and the heat of the sun. They did not remember how did the sun look like. So, Margaret remembered the sun very well because she came just 5 years before, and she experienced the sun for almost 4 years. So, it is like a penny, she said once, eyes closed. So, Margaret said, sun look like penny, a coin. No, it is not, children cried. Children said, no, it is not like penny. It is like fire, she said, in the stove. So, Margaret said, it is like fire in the stove. You are lying, you do not remember, cried the children. Children were jealous of her, and they were bullying her. So, they said that, no, it is not like fire, it is not like penny. But she remembered and stood quietly apart from all of them and watched the patterning windows. But Margaret remained silent. She was quiet, and she was looking at the patterning windows. Patterning because the rain was falling over the windows, and pattern is being made on the window. And once a month ago, what happened a month before? She refused to shower in the school shower rooms, had clutched her hand to her ears and over her head, screaming that the water must not touch her head. Margaret did not like to shower, and she said that water must not touch her head. So, after that, dimly she sensed she was different, and they knew her difference and kept away. So, what they realized that Margaret is different from them, and she was different, therefore, they all were jealous, and they all bullied her, they all hated her. There was talk that her father and mother were taking her back to the earth next year, and there was also a talk that next year what will happen? Her father and mother will take Margaret to the earth. It seemed vital to her that they do not, through it would mean the loss of thousands of dollars to her family. It would mean the loss of the thousands of dollars to her family, and so the children hated her for all these reasons of big and little consequences. They hated. So, what will it do if the Margaret goes to earth? It will cost thousands of dollars. So, they hated Margaret for many small and big reasons, and they hated her pale snow face, her waiting silence, her thinness, and her possible future. So, what did they hate in the Margaret? That she was go to the earth, her possible future, her thinness, she was weak, frail, and she was silent, waiting silent, and her pale snow face. They did not like the face of the Margaret, they did not like the silence of Margaret, they did not like her thinness and not her possible future, that she will be going to the earth and enjoy the life. Get away, the boy gave another push. What are you waiting for? So, the boy pushed Margaret again. Then for the first time she turned and looked at him, and what she was waiting for in her eyes. So, for the first time she turned. Well, do not wait over here, cried the boy savagely, you will not see anything. So, the boy said that you will not be going to see the sun today. Savagely they behaved. Her lips moved. So, the Margaret tried to speak something. Nothing, he cried. It was all a joke, wasn't it? He turned to other children. So, the other children were jealous of Margaret. So, they said that nothing would going to appear today. Nothing happening today, is it? They all blinked at him, and then understanding laughed and shook their head. So, they all blinked their eyes and laughed and shook their head, bullying, trying to harass Margaret. Nothing, nothing. Oh, but Margaret whispered, her eyes helpless. So, Margaret whispered her eyes helplessly. But this is a day, she said, this is a day. The scientists predicted, they say, they know the sun. So, Margaret said, this is a day when scientists predicted that the sun will come. All a joke, said a boy. So, boy said, it's a joke, sun will not come, and seized her roughly. And they seized Margaret roughly. Hey everyone, let's put her into the closet before a teacher come. So, they said that before a teacher come, we should keep Margaret in a closet, in a room. Closet is a room. No, Margaret refused. Margaret said no. They surged about her, caught her up, and bore into protesting and then pleading and then crying back into the tunnel. So, Margaret was crying, pleading, but they didn't listen anything. They put her into the tunnel, a closet, where they slammed forcefully closed her and locked the door. So, they locked the door there. They stood looking at the door and saw it tremble from beating and throwing herself against it. So, they saw that she was beating and throwing herself at the door. They heard her muffled cries. So, muffled cries are suppressed cries. So, what they were hearing? They were hearing that Margaret is crying from the closet. Then smiling, they turned out and back down the tunnel just as the teacher arrived. So, as the teacher arrived, they done their job, and in the starting of the story it was said that they are like the roses in the weeds, and they proved that. Ready children, she glanced at her watch. So, the teacher glanced at the watch because the teachers know sun is going to come. Yes, said everyone, all we are here. The rain slacked still more. They crowded to the huge door. The rain stopped. So, the teacher said, are you ready? All were ready, and then the rain stopped. And in this next para, this writer has given the way the life goes on Venus in a very lively manner with the beauty of expressions. So, it was as if the midst of film concerning an avalanche or tornado, a hurricane, a volcanic eruption, something has first gone wrong with the sound apparatus, just muffling and finally cutting off the noise. So, rain has stopped. So, what has stopped? Avalanche has stopped, tornado has stopped, hurricane has stopped, volcanic eruption has stopped, and finally, all the voices are cut because there was sound like a tatting drum. All of the blast and recursions and thunders, and then second tripped the film from the projector and inserted in the place a beautiful tropical slide. And what now is visible? It's like a beautiful tropical sight, as if looking from a projector, which did not move or tremor. So, this sight does not move or tremor. The word ground to a standstill. So, word is standstill. Why? Because the rain is stopped. The silence was so immense and unbelievable that you felt your ears have been stuffed on what you had lost hearing altogether. So, they were putting hand on the ears because they thought that they have gone deaf because they are hearing no sounds of the rain. The children put their hand on the ears. They stood apart. The door slid back and the smell of the silent wanting word came to them. So, it's a silent word now. The rain is stopped and children were smelling the silence. The sun came out. What happened? The sun came out. It was the color of the flaming bronze. So, what's flaming bronze? Color of the sun. And it was very large, and the sky around it was blazing blue tile color. So, sun was like a flaming bronze and the sky was rather blue. And the jungle burned with sunlight as the children, released from their spell, rushed yelling into the springtime. So, what was jungle looking like? As if it will got burned from the sunlight, shining. And what did children do? They came out from their spell, from the classroom, and they rushed out yelling, playing into the spring, because the spring has came, sun has came. Now, don't you go too far, say call the teacher after them. You have only 2 hours, you won't want to get caught out. So, the teacher think that you should not be lost in the jungle. So, don't go too far, you have just 2 hours to play. But they were running and turning their faces up to the sky and feeling the sun on their cheeks like a warm iron. So, what were they doing? They were feeling the sun like the warm iron, and they were taking off their jackets and letting the sun burn their arms. So, what they wanted? They wanted the sun to burn their arms because they were missing sun too much. Oh, it's better than the sun lamps, isn't it? So, they are comparing that this sun is better than the sun lamps, much better. They stopped running and stood in the great jungle that covered Venus. Now in this para, the jungle has been described. The flora fauna of the Venus has been described. So they stopped running in the great jungle that covered Venus and grew and never stopped growing. So jungle was continuously growing tumultuously. Even as we watch, it was a nest of octopi clustering up great arms of flesh like weed. So what was it consist of? There were octopus and weeds, wavering flowers. All there was in this forest. It was the color of rubber and the ash, the jungle from the many years without sun. So what was this jungle looking like? It was like rubber and it was like ash, not green, because there was no sunlight. So they could not make their own food. So they are not green. Plants are not green. The jungle are like rubber and ash. It was the color of stones and white cheeses and ink, and it was color of the moon. So this was the color of jungle in which the children were enjoying. The children lay out laughing on the jungle mattress. So on the floor of the jungle they were enjoying and heard it sigh and squeak under their resilient and alive. So what they are hearing? They were hearing sounds. They were hearing silence because the rain is stopped. They ran among the trees, they slipped and fell, they pushed each other, they played hide and seek and tag, but most of all squinted at the sun until the tears ran down their faces. So they were just facing the sun, looking at the sun, up to which time? Up to tears from their eyes come out. They put their hands up to that yellowness and that amazing blueness, and they breathed on the fresh air and listened to the silence. So they were breathing the fresh air and listening to the silence. So that's a wonderful scene of encounter with the sun. They looked at everything and savored everything. So they enjoyed the taste as long as possible. They wildly like animals escaped from the caves. They ran in shouting circles. So it's a simile again. The children had been compared with the wild animals, and for an hour they didn't stop running. And for an hour, what were they doing? They didn't stop running. And then in the midst of running, one of the girl wailed. Everyone stopped. The girl is standing in open, held her hand. Oh look, she said, trembling. They came slowly to look at open palm. In the center of it, there was a huge single raindrop. She began to cry, looking at. They glanced quietly at the sun. Oh. So what happened with that? The raindrop fell on the palm of the girl, and the girl showed that it started raining. A few cold drops fell on the noses and the cheeks and their mouths. And now what happened? The few cold drops fell on them. The sun faded behind a stir of mist. So sun started fading. A wind blew cold around them. They turned and started to walk back toward the underground house. So what they started? They started walking toward the underground houses. And their hands and their side, their smiles vanishing away. So they are no longer happy, smiles are vanishing. A boom of thunder startled them, and like leaves before a new hurricane, they tumbled upon each other and ran. So they were running, lightning struck 10 miles away, 5 miles, away a mile, half mile. So now lightning is also visible and it's coming close to them. The sky darkened into midnight in a flash, and in a flash the sky was like a midnight sky. They stood in a doorway of the underground for movement until it was raining hard. So they came to the doorway, it started raining hard. They closed the door and heard the gigantic sound of rain falling in tons and avalanches everywhere. So what happened? Rain fell in a gigantic way as it used to fall. Will it be 7 more years? Yes, 7. Then one of them gave a little cry, Margaret. So they were discussing that it will now rain for 7 more years. Then they remember, where is Margaret? What? She is still in the closet. So they thought she is still in the closet. They stood as if someone has driven them so many stakes into the floor. They looked at each other. So now they are feeling guilty. It's a rather heat they got from the sun that their mind came out from the jealousy, and then looked away. They glanced out the word, and they were running now and raining steadily. So now it's for raining. So they came there. They looked at their hands and faces down. Margaret, one of the girls, said, well. No one moved. Go on, whispered the girl. Girl said, go on. They walked slowly down the hall in a round of cold rain. They turned through the doorway to the room to the sound of the storm and thunder, lightning on the faces, blue and terrible. They walked over the closet and stood over there. So, they went to the closet, and behind the closet door was only silence. Margaret was sitting. They unlocked the door even more slowly and let the Margaret out. Margaret came out of there. So, why did they do this? They do this because now their jealousy is over, because they had the heat of the sun, and the sun has changed their mind. So, this was our story. So, thank you for being with me. Thank you very much.